What does it mean for Boston College to be a social justice oriented program? Well, social justice really shows up in every aspect of the program at BC. So it's part of all of your coursework when you're taking classes in the program. So it's not just like there's one class on social justice or one class on multicultural issues, but it's really a central part of all the classes. It shows up in the readings, the way that the professors structure their syllabi, the kinds of projects you're asked to do, etc. There is one particular class which I think is unique to Boston College. First-year doctoral students take a class called Counseling in Context, which is encouraging first-year students to think in creative ways about how psychologists can act as agents of social justice. And that often involves thinking outside of traditional roles that psychologists might play. So as well as being a researcher or a therapist, you can also be engaged in advocacy work, or you can be doing consultation for organizations. So thinking about the ways that we as psychologists can engage systems in social justice work as well as individuals. And as a first-year student, as part of this class, you do something called an FYE, or a first-year experience, where it's kind of like a clinical practicum. It's 4 or 5 hours a week, but instead of just doing pure clinical work, you are, again, thinking or working in creative ways as a psychologist on a social justice issue. So, for instance, in my first year experience, I was working closely with a small local collaborative of domestic violence advocates, lawyers, domestic violence survivors who are interested in changing the experience of custody litigation in family court for DV survivors. And I was working with them on a project to help develop a toolkit or a resource for survivors going into family court to help them feel more prepared. So that's a kind of really special experience that I don't think you would get at other schools, of not just developing your skills as a researcher and as a clinician, but also thinking of yourself as, and being able to engage in what it might look like to be a psychologist as an agent of social justice as well. So outside of the coursework, social justice also shows up in the research that the faculty are engaged in Boston College. So there are faculty here working on issues of racism and mental health, LGBTQ mental health. My own research, a lot of the work that my lab does is community-based research, which means that we're not just academics showing up in a community to conduct a study, but we're really working collaboratively with communities to make sure that the research is interesting, is relevant, is including them, which I think personally is a really important way to see the role of academics doing research in communities. And then the social justice lens, I think, also shows up in the clinical work as well. There are a lot of practicum opportunities in the Boston area, and I think because the BC program has such a strong social justice emphasis, we've also developed as a program really great relationships with the kinds of practicum sites in Boston that also care about those issues as well. So I've had 2 different practicum sites so far, and both of them have been places where I felt really supported in my interest in understanding people within social contexts and understanding the role of oppression in mental health. And I felt like I've been able to continue my growth and my training in those areas at my practicum sites as well.
The Counseling Psych program at BC, in my opinion, really embodies what it means to be a social justice-oriented program. From the difficult discussions we have in the classroom, to the types of research questions that we ask in our labs, to the work that we do in the community, BC and the Lynch School of Education and Human Development specifically really take it upon themselves to constantly critique and critically analyze a lot of the issues that are happening around this country. And to me, that is incredibly important, and I think one of the biggest strengths of the program.
For me, to be a social justice-oriented program from the student perspective means that students in the program are taught to be thoughtful about the way they move through the world, to be thoughtful about the way that they exist and act in the world, and they're taught to take into considerations different factors that might influence equitable distribution of resources, for instance, or equitable distribution of research findings, or equitable distribution of care. And those are really questions that the program asks students to grapple with and to think about, and to incorporate that kind of thinking into the way that into their professional roles, into their roles as researchers, as academics, as practitioners, as advocates. It really just the sense of how important social justice is sort of permeates through the program and through the various courses that are taught in the program. And not only that, but I think, or at least to me, it also means that the program takes into account student suggestions and student experiences within the program. For instance, there are cohort meetings with the director of training. There are student representative meetings, again, with the director of training, where cohort representatives, there's one student representative from each cohort who can voice any concerns or any suggestions that that cohort might have. And the program really provides forums for student experiences to be heard, and tries to consult and support students. I think the program is really great at people. The faculty in the department recognize how hard it is to be a PhD student, and everyone wants you to succeed, and everyone is very supportive. And I think that also means, to me, that fits within the definition of a social justice oriented program. So not only teaching students how to think in terms of social justice in their careers and in their lives, but also not just talking the talk, but also walking the walk, and supporting students and through different challenges in their lives, and just being there for the students and taking their experience into account.